Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. This is the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Our next guest is an Irishman who's played in more countries than Bono. John Andrews, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John Paul. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Right, John, as always, we go right back to the start. You're born in Cork and played for Ringmahon Rangers. Were you always football mad, and who did you support growing up?
I'm a typical Irishman. I supported whoever had the most Irish. So I started off on Liverpool with Ronnie Whelan, Ray Houghton, John Aldridge, Stevie Staunton. And then when that kind of wavered off, I went to Aston Villa because they had God, Big Paul McGrath, Andy Townsend, Tony Cascarino, Staunton again, Ray Houghton again. So it was always that way. And then realistically, my love is a weird one, which was the old Wimbledon, the old crazy gang. Well, that was one of the things in India. I know we'll get onto it later on about Tez in India, but Terry was one of my heroes because he was so quick as a fullback and playing for Wimbledon and playing for Ireland. I was like, Jesus. And then he walks in with his academy and you're like starstruck.
Wow, brilliant. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. You went over to Coventry City, who were then a Premier League team, who had the likes of John Salako, Dion Dublin, Gary McAllister. Was that a bit overwhelming from a young lad from Cork?
It was more, the most overwhelming side of it was the fact that I instantly thought I was one of them, and I thought I was a part of it. And, you forget that when you go to England, you were on the bottom rung of the ladder. And I didn't get that for about 2 or 3 months. I thought I was a part of it, and I'd walk around the place thinking I was a Premier League soccer player, when in reality I was on 70 quid a week playing in the youth team. And that was very hard to kind of break that mold and realize that you're back. Because, when you're playing in your club in Ireland, you think you're a bit of something, and people start giving you a bit of, they start giving you plaudits and stuff. That was very hard to kind of break that mold. But I must say that the bigger stars that were there was also a guy there called Roland Nielsen. Remember him from Sheffield Wednesday? Swedish guy, right back?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
What a play. And that guy, he was the only guy I've ever seen had Ryan Giggs in his pocket. Every time he played, he was phenomenal. Gary Gillespie was there, as I said earlier. Peter Shilton was there. It was just a dressing room full of absolute legends. But they were all, like the bigger ones, McAllister, Dion Dublin, Richie Shaw, Paul Williams, they were all sound, absolutely sound. And if they saw you working, they'd always come over with a little bit of help or something like that. They were great guys.
Do you think it's a common thing for Irish kids going over? I mean, obviously, you got the likes of Troy Parr, and there's a good few of the Irish lads there now. But I mean, even back then, going over there with that kind of the hype around them and think, I'm just going to walk in here and I am, like you said, a Premier League player. Do you think that's a common issue?
I don't know about now, because I haven't, I know I got lucky enough to work a very small bit with Adam Ida in the Emerging Talent Programme when he was back in Cork, and I was spending a bit of time in Cork. Very little now, nothing impactful or anything, but those players have gone over and they've made an impact. They seem to be making an impact earlier. Like Adam got in at 17, I think. Troy's in. A lot of the Irish kids seem to get in. And I'm just wondering, the more trouble I look at it, it's not maybe trouble, is the change in training methods. You go from your 2 or your 3 times a week, and then you're into England. And if you have a little look, a lot of the Irish kids seem to get injured, male and female. They seem to get injured when they go across to England, because it's from... Not saying the training level is low. I'm just saying the amount of training that they're doing might not be as much. And they go in and they're suddenly bombarded with 2 a days and sometimes 3 a days, and the body just can't take it.
Right, you had spells with a few different English teams, most notably Mansfield, before heading back to play for Cork City and Cove Ramblers then. It must have felt good to get home then.
Well, I found a home in Mansfield, I have to be honest. That was a club and it still is dear to my heart. I played against Nigel Clough a couple of times, and he's the current manager. Mansfield is a smashing town, and it's a working class area. Tough people. And I loved it there. Absolutely adored it. Coming back to play for Cork, I'll be honest, John Paul, when I left Mansfield, I didn't play football for about 6 months. I just despised it. I couldn't watch it on the telly. I just wanted to get out, and I wanted to get back to education. I just went, because football is, as an adult, I'm fine. But when you're a 19, I think it was 21 when I came home, or 22 or something, when you're that and nobody talks to you about anything else other than football, it becomes overwhelming, really overwhelming. And this is I don't know what for other footballers, I don't know what it's like, but I got bored of just saying the same things, meeting the same people, shaking the same hands, signing the same autograph. I got absolutely, not that I didn't enjoy it, I just got bored of people, and I wanted to be mentally stimulated. So I went back into College to Stefan Nefa, where I was, I did my leaving cert. I went away and did my leaving cert and got a really good leaving. And that was at 22 or 23 years of age. The Cork City thing was funny. I'm not sure if you know who my sister is, Marion Heffernan, Rob Heffernan's wife.
Rob Heffernan is the Olympian.
Yes, and my sister actually ran the Olympics for Ireland in the 400 meters 4x4 relay.
A sporting family.
Yeah, and my nephew is around there now. He's just come back from Italy on about 4 or 5 clubs. He's been to England at Man United, Burnley. You know, he's bright future ahead of him as well.
What's his name, John?
Cathal Heffernan.
Cathal Heffernan. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for him.
He's doing very well, and he's a hard-working young fella. So we're very proud of him. But I got sick to death of as I said, the same question. So I was sitting. Liam Murphy was not only the manager of Cork City at the time, and Liam would always say, "John, will you come back, John?" And I was not a hope. I don't want anything to do with it. And I went to a training session. I don't know why, but I went to a training session. And I come back and I was riddled with anxiety, I think, and you know yourself when you're out of shape and you're sitting on the couch, you're just after doing your first training session, heart rate's blasting. And Marion came in and we were all still living at home at the time. And she turned to me and she says, what's the matter? Are you all right? I said, Liam Murphy asked me to play a game for Stefan Nefa. And I'm not too sure, Marion. She goes, "Oh, get up off your arse and play, will you?" And funny enough, I did motivational speaking for the Chamber of Commerce in Cork, and that was my opening line: "Get up off your arse and play," just to get a little bit of a pop, you know, and get people kind of paying attention. So I to this day, I put up a post on Instagram, I think a couple of days ago or something, and that line was in it. It was Marion's birthday, and that line, "Get up off your arse and play," was in there. It's something that's stuck with me. 20 years later, more maybe, 20 years.
2004, you went off to America. Tell us about that.
I did. Yeah. Funny enough, my last game for Cove, from what I can remember, I could be wrong on this, I went down to Cove Ramblers, and I'd have to put this guy over. I have to give him a shout out, Mr. Dave Hill, absolute legend of a coach. He was outstanding down the Cove Ramblers, some of the stuff he did. And they organised a friendly against Man United, and Robbie Keane brought a team over to Turner's Cross, and we played. Brilliant game. I think they beat us 2-1. And after about 2 days after that game, a guy rang me from America, and because I'm huge on education, I'm still a big reader now, and this guy rang me and he says, and he's a Dublin man actually, but he had that that accent that people have when they go to America, and it's still Dublin, but it's got the American twinge in it. And he says, "Are you John Andrews?" I said, "I am." He goes, "Have you ever played professionally?" I said, "I have, 8-9 years or whatever it was in England." "No, you haven't. I can't find you on Google. There's a scholarship there. Over you come." And that was it. And I got in on the grandfather scheme, ironically enough. I could go on all day about America for you.
Where was it exactly?
I was in Pulaski, Tennessee, right down in the Alabama border of Tennessee.
God damn, son.
God damn, son. Oh man, they used to call me their little Irish. All the women would call, "Oh, my little Irish," you know. And I'm 6'1", 6'1.5", or whatever it is. And all the big, massive basketball players, the big, huge, like 7-footers, would call me Big John. So there was a bit of a complex going on there. Like all the women would go, "Hey, John, my little Irish," and all the basketball, "Hey, Big John." I'm going, "How are you?" You know.
Reverse psychology, John, huh?
Oh, kill you, JP. You know.
Right. And then in 2007. You were off to play in Iceland. What was that like?
Well, we'd won the national championship with the women's side in America, in Daytona Beach, and a guy called Gareth O'Sullivan had come down to see us. And Gareth was an Irish manager. He had a lot of success in the college game in America, and excuse me, he had a lot of success in the college game in America. And Gareth came over. He had met an Icelandic girl, came over to Iceland, and ended up coaching here. And he was in the Premier League with a women's side. And he came back to Daytona to watch the national championships, probably to scout players. And I was just happened to be doing a session. And he said, "Look, so would you be interested in going to Iceland?" And I goes, "Of course I would." Because we're in the middle of a national championship, I just dismissed it. won the national championships, got back, it would have been December. And he says, he rang the coach. I was the assistant coach at the time. And he rang the coach, and and I wasn't involved in the conversation. I was walking past the office. So this was just by chance. And I heard Andrews. I don't know. He's a bit crazy. He's a bit intense. And I said, who's that? And my boss turned around and he said, that's Sully in Iceland. So I went on the phone. Yeah, okay, click. 2 weeks later, I was in Reykjavik.
Jesus.
So it worked, and it was. And I actually went over more or less to kind of not restart, but just kind of fan the flames of whatever kind of coaching career I was starting to develop. Because I'll be honest with you, John Paul, I never really, after England, I don't think I've admitted this to anybody, I'd never really enjoyed playing after that. It was agony. My body was sore, my knees were sore, my back was always sore, always getting ankle injuries. Somebody said to me when I was at Coventry, it's because I was tall and had like size 7.5 feet. So the imbalances or something like that. And I was always in pain, and I didn't enjoy playing, but I always loved watching managers on the TV, and always loved watching people like Ron Atkinson and Gordon Strachan, Bill Dearden at Mansfield, Dave at Cove. Always loved the way they worked their dressing room, and I was saying that's where I want to go. So when I got the chance to go to Iceland, I realized I was I was watching Rocky Balboa, another one of these things. And have you ever seen the film The Rocky Six? I think it is. Tarver, I think it's Antonio Tarver he fights.
Yeah, he was an owl lad, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a part in it. What you remember, Paulie, the drunk guy?
Paulie. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Hey, Rock.
Paulie was his sister-in-law or brother-in-law. Sorry, wasn't he?
Was he? Okay, yeah, he was. Yeah, Paulie was, that's right.
Adrian's brother.
Yeah, and he was. They were sitting, and Rocky was doing something, restaurant or something, and he was after signing the fight. And I was sitting with a friend of mine, Grant Fairchild, who I'm still in contact with today. He's a athletic trainer. And Paulie started talking about the stuff in the basement. And Grant just looked at me, and I tears running down my face. And he went, "You're going to go to Iceland, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." And that was it. So I knew there was something left. But again, I was using the playing to get into coaching.
What were your first impressions of Iceland?
Oh Jesus! I went in January of 2008. I think it was the first time I landed here, and just cold, man. It's called Iceland for a reason, It's not called Sunland. Jesus, it was bitter. And I've told this on a couple of other podcasts, and it's just funny. A friend of mine, he's become a dear friend since we were training, and I was Johnny Foreigner, So I was coming back from America and England and Ireland and all that. So I'm taking a touch, and there's snow up the side of the field. Now the field is heated, the AstroTurf is heated, so it's perfect. But there's snow maybe 3 feet, 4 feet up on the sides all around the field. And I'm taking a touch and thinking I've loads of time. And this guy just came in and smashed me. So my head goes in and gets stuck into the snow, and I can't get out. Now I'm struggling to breathe. I'm trying to dig myself out, and no one's helping, So I'm literally giving it one of these. And I get myself out, fucking, snow everywhere and whatever. And I turn, and the guy says to me, "Welcome to Iceland." And the thing was, like, you've been to the States a lot. You were over there a lot. It was yes, sir, no, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, no, sir, no swearing. And this guy pushing me in and going, "Welcome to Iceland." I goes, "Man, I think I'm going to enjoy this." So it's that was my first impression of Iceland.
And you were there for a while, and you went back to Ireland.
I did 6.5 years there, yeah.
In 2016, you were singing in a 2-piece band called Jack in the Box, belting out tunes on the Cork bar scene.
That's right.
Before heading off on your travels again, this time to India. How in the name of Jesus did that happen?
I was doing my UEFA A, because I'd said to myself, you know what, I'm going to give this coaching lark a good, because I go backwards again to go forwards. I did 4.5 years as a head coach in the Premier League in Iceland, Women's Premier League, and I had no licenses. I'd come straight from playing, so I was kind of allowed to keep coaching. I had 4.5 years as a head coach, and the Icelandic Premier League was number 7 in Europe at the time. It was a decent league, so I just kept getting, contract extension. But when I got back to Ireland, I got in touch with Niall O'Regan, and I wanted it, and Greg Patterson, actually, sorry, it was the first one. Greg was the head of coach education. He's now in Scotland, I think. And I thought to myself, I'd started the B license in Iceland to be allowed to be seen as coach, to keep my job really, and finished it in Cork. Then jumped onto the A license, and there was a lot of people on there. Michel Salgado from Cork, from Real Madrid was on there. Paddy McCarthy, who was the current Crystal Palace Academy manager. And there was a guy called Dave Rogers, and Dave was working out in the International Academy in India for Liverpool. And he had just hired an assistant coach. And he said, look, John, I want you to come in with me. He said, but I can't get you in as an assistant coach. I just hired a guy. He said, but I can get you in because I have a strength and conditioning background as well. He says, I can get you in as a strength and conditioning coach. He said, would you be interested? And I said, yeah, no problem at all. And just blew him off. I went, yeah, of course I will. And Dave played for Shelburne and St.Pats and Cork and Dundalk. We finished off the A license. We have whatever kind of an evening you would have when you finish your A license. We had a bit of a dinner or whatever it was, to finish off the A license. And in football, I'm sure you know this yourself, it's that everybody says, hey, I'm going to bring you in. You're going to be my guy. And look, I've learned something very, very important in my football and life and in life in general. It's not who you know. It's who's willing to say they know you. Everybody, we all know everybody, but it's who's willing to put their name on the line for you. And this guy, Dave Rogers, he said, look, will you come over? So I went over as the head of strength and conditioning with the knowledge I was going to be the assistant manager. And that happened fairly quickly. And I was up getting my Indian visa the day Rob Heffernan was walking the 50K in Rio. And I was up, as I was traveling up on the train to Dublin to go to the visa office, I was booking gigs in the band I was in. Because I thought this isn't going to happen. There's so many things fall through in football. I need to keep making a living. I need to keep whatever I was doing. So I was booking gigs. So up until the day I left for India, I was booking gigs because of the fact that I just thought, you know what, if this falls through, I'm not financially well off enough to say I don't need to work. So I was looking after both sides. And then we got out to India, I think it was September. July of 16, yeah. July or August of 16, maybe, I'm not sure.
What sort of condition were the Indian lads in?
They were very, very, you know what, aesthetically they looked great, John Paul. Like 6-pack abs, veiny muscle, protruding veins in the muscles. They looked fantastic. But you'd be surprised then they couldn't do 5-kilo dumbbell curls, and they were very weak functionally. And I was like, Jesus, how is this? Because they looked spectacular. Well, I found out because of the fact that they barely ate. And anyone can be skinny at 19 years of age if you're not going to eat. So that was the biggest challenge for me as a strength and conditioning coach, was to change the meal plan that the guys were on. Not a big fan of saying diet, because the first 3 letters of diet are die. Diets don't work. They just don't work. And I'm a big believer of that. So he said, we'll change the mentality of these kids, start to getting them into chicken, lots of vegetables. Unbelievable. And you would not believe, John Paul, how little water these guys, their water intake was. Sometimes you're playing in 40, 43 degree heat, and how little their water. Oh my God, it was frightening, dangerously frightening. So that was one of the main things. What would happen then is Dave would go off and do Champions League work with Terry Phelan. Would go off and do Champions League work, and he would do that 2 or 3 nights of the week, especially in the Indian season when the Champions League would overlap. And the assistant manager would say, Don, I think you should take the session today. I'll observe. That was his word, I'll observe. So it was heaven to me, because I just finished the A license. I was going, man, I love coaching. I love being on the field. I loved working with the players, and we had some terrific players over there, John Paul. Like, I'm talking top class Indian internationals. Like, one kid was playing for Real Madrid. He's just retired now, Juanquero. So you're dealing with really top class players. So, when this guy would say, hey, I'll observe today, and, it was his way of saying, John, you do the work. Man, I was on cloud 9. I loved it.
Yeah, just chatting to Terry Phelan recently about it. And he was saying, that the goal was to walk before you run, as in, to get India to a decent level in India, try and compete with the other sports, like cricket a little bit. Then, Asia, and then after that, have a look at, right, can these players play in Europe? I heard you met a few famous Irish lads out there.
Well, I met, the only one really that I met out there was Terry. And that was hilarious, because we didn't know Terry was coming in. He was coming in with his academy, and nobody said anything to me, because we would do 3 a days, and I'd be involved in all these 3 sessions. And then we had the academy, and there was a guy called Dan Rees, who's now, I think Dan came to be my assistant last year in Vikinger. Dan is out running the International Academy for Liverpool in China. Me and Dan hung out an awful lot because Dave was away. The assistant manager didn't do much, so we would be doing all the work. So we didn't really know of the incomings and the outcomings on the campus. Next thing an hour before it happens, Terry Phelan's coming with his academy. And we're saying, yeah, oh, Terry Phelan. And I'm going, Terry Phelan? Like, Terry Phelan. And he says, yeah. And I'm just going back to being a kid, watching the 1994 World Cup. And there's an iconic picture. I actually sent it to Terry about a year ago of when we win. Terry looks up and Giant Stadium, there's however many Irish. It's just one of those iconic pictures. If you ever watch the game again, it'll stick in your mind forever with that picture of Terry looking up into the stand. And fair play, the manager wasn't there for the first 2 or 3 hours. So I just sat with Terry Phelan. So there I am sitting with one of my heroes, just sitting in a coffee shop, shooting the breeze, drinking coffee, just going, Christ. And the stories, he was absolutely brilliant. So generous with his time and his stories. And we've kept in touch since. We keep in touch fairly regularly. He's a terrific guy.
Sure, he told me a few stories, and I'm sure he's plenty more. But he is, he's a lovely chap. Where did you meet Robbie Keane?
I met Robbie on the pro license.
Where was that?
And that was in Johnstown and Meath. We started off in Johnstown and Meath. But the thing was, I played against Robbie in youth sides and stuff like that. And I've got a couple of brilliant Robbie Keane stories. One of which was the Colin Hawkins played centre back. Do you remember Colin?
I do. You remember St.Pats, did he?
Yeah, and Colin played on that brilliant Irish under-18s team.
Yeah, he was a centre half.
Yeah. Well, he was also my centre half partner at Coventry because I was left out. That's another funny story. Brian Kerr rang me and said, "Look, I'm leaving you out." He said, "I've got a guy coming in," and I was furious because I'd been the captain of the team in one of the previous games against Finland, and he said, "Look, but I'm going to leave you out. This kid is coming in." I was watching, I think it was Everton about like 2 days later, and who was the kid? Richie Dunn. And I goes, yeah, okay, I get
Richie
it.
Dunn, okay.
Yeah, he's not a bad player. I goes, yeah, I get it. But the same thing happened with Robbie. We were playing Wolves at Molyneux in one of the cups. It could have been the FAU Cup, I can't remember. And Colin kept talking to me about this kid, Robbie Keane. So of course you're going to get your goat up. You're playing against an Irish guy and everything. And we won the game 2-0. And I was like, I didn't think he wasn't, outstanding. You see, he was a great, brilliant player, but he wasn't. And then again, 4 or 5 days later, I think he's playing against Norwich, if I'm not mistaken. It was Norwich he made his debut against, I think. And he banged in 2 goals on TV, and you go, okay, it's another one. Yeah, get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But he, one of the best stories, I can't tell you all of it because it would incriminate me, not Robbie, just me. But we had met for the first, the pro license was starting on the Monday, and we had met for on the Sunday, so we were all meeting up, and a lot of the lads that were on our A license, Jim Brennan, Paddy McCarthy, Kev Maher, they were all back for the pro license, and it was a terrific group. So in walks Robbie, and in walks Damien Duff. And Damien was my roommate in a couple of times when we were on the Irish under 15s and 16s and 17s. And I hadn't spoke to him in years, but how's it going and whatever. But I hadn't really met Robbie too much at all. So we get in, sit down, we're having a bit of a chat. This is brilliant, actually. This is a great story. So we the night's finishing off, we're having coffee or tea, Barry's tea or whatever, decaf, of course. I said something, I ended up sitting next to Rob. And I said something along the lines of, I'm a little intimidated here, to be honest with you. I said, because we have Keith Andrews, Andy Reid, Damien, yourself. And, I said, I'm a little intimidated. And Robbie went on one. He said, you need to, you've been managing here. He's obviously done his homework, which is what Robbie is like. Done his homework. And he was, you should be proud of yourself. You deserve to be here as much as anything. So I walk off, and Niall O'Regan pulls me across and he says, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. He said, Robbie seemed to go off at you. He said, what's going on? I said, Robbie was just proving why he was the international captain for the last 10 years. I felt like $1 million. Absolutely $1 million. I walked out of there on cloud 9.
Brilliant.
He has this great way of making you, of lifting you. He's a terrific bloke.
India must have been a very, very different lifestyle to Ireland, America, and Iceland. I mean, I got a glimpse of what it would be like. Me and the wife were down in Sri Lanka last year.
Do you know what, John Paul? It really was. And we were cocooned away. We were in the DSK Shivazian's campus, which was also a college campus. It was top class, to be honest with you. But the owner at the time was building a city. Like he was actually, he was funding and building a city. That's how rich the guy was. So we were brought into this campus. We very rarely left it the first maybe 2 or 3 months. So the first 2 or 3 months, it was just acclimatizing to the heat. But after that, we started to venture out. It's just stuff that maybe you take for granted. There's a very tough story, and then there's a beautiful story. We would go to Starbucks, and then we'd want to go across the street to get an orange juice or a sandwich, and you might have to step over people lying in the street, and you don't know if, you don't know if they're sick or if they're just going to sleep or if they're, God bless, they could be dead. I didn't know, but no, obviously, it was just tough. But we went to Delhi for the Durand Cup, I think it's called. It's the oldest cup competition in the world. And it was my first kind of intro into India, walking down a street in Delhi, and it was blazing hot, maybe 36, 37 degrees, would have been August, which is the time of the rains, and these kids are, again, you're walking because you can't fix everybody, there's, your heart goes out to people and you're going, man, I'd love to help and I'd love to help. It was just so overwhelming. So you're walking, these kids are lying on the street or they're huddled over, looking like they're asleep, and the monsoon hit. Right, it was a real monsoon. It's not like Irish rain where it just kind of, oh Jesus, this was 2-3 feet of water in a couple of hours, So we go to the hotel, we look back out, and those same kids are as happy as any Irish kid that's just after getting a bike or a PlayStation or a Wii or whatever these new things are. I don't know what they are. They're bouncing about in the water, John Paul. They're swimming, some of them. And it was, it was just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, one of those things that, just warms you, gets into your bones and warms you. And it was beautiful. And that went on for a couple of days. But in India was the only thing I couldn't get over in India was just the difference we eventually understood it. There was people that were working, like we would be being paid, of course, you would be being paid. Was people like cleaners and stuff like that, the caste system, they'd be working for 60 or 80 or 100 euros a month or something like that. So if they could say something to get an extra tenner, it changes their life. Whereas you go, oh Christ, I just go to Starbucks and get a macchiato, latte, frappuccino or something, or whatever they are. I don't know what they are. And it's a tenner just gone out of your pocket, but it changes their life. And it was unbelievable, the difference. That was the only thing I kind of didn't get until mainly about 2-3 months before I left.
Yeah, you're back in Iceland now. You're coaching a ladies team, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
How's that going?
It's going really well. It's the team I'm coaching is a team called Vikinger, which is just Viking with a little dash on the I. It was a part of a team. HK and Vikinger were mixed as clubs, and they split last year. My job is to get this club back up to the Premier League and to make sure it's back where it belongs. Kind of, I have to be honest with you. It's a terrific. Like our men's team were in Europe last year. Brilliant club. Kauri Arnason, the Icelandic national team centre back, is playing for us. It's a really good club. So it's my job to get them back up. So it's going really well, but we've had to build it from the bottom up, John Paul, so it's a case of having to redo the whole structure as regards the first team, under 18s, under 16s. So we have a constant flow of players coming through. It's, again, we were talking earlier about the Icelandic system. It's brilliant because everybody wants to play football. So there's a plethora of players, coming through it. And then it's our job to keep them there.
Well, let's just talk about that for a second, John, while we're at that actual subject. I mean, Iceland is a small country for the size of them. The success they've had in qualifying, like on Euro 2016, beating England. I think they lost to France in the quarterfinal. What is the difference between the coaching system between, say, Iceland and Ireland? We're also a small country. I mean, you're saying there that everyone wants to play, but in Ireland, obviously, we've got to compete with Gaelic football, hurling, and rugby. Iceland, I don't know what other sports they have, but I imagine handball. With the population size, handball, population size wouldn't be much bigger, maybe lower than the Irish soccer playing population.
Oh, I'd say
what is the big difference?
I think the facilities have an awful lot to do with it, John Paul. Here's something about the Icelandic people that I love, and I hope when people hear this, I hope it comes across as heartfelt as I'm going to mean it to come across. They don't, that old thing is, we don't create problems, we solve them. That old analogy. That's Iceland down to a T. There's horrible weather here from November through till March. And I'm talking horrible, especially for football. But instead of going, oh, weary woo, and, you know, oh, it's awful, what do? Build AstroTurfs. When it gets really bad, what do? They build indoor houses, full-size indoor houses. So there's always, like, the kids are always training. There's always a place for them to go. When the weather gets super bad and you can't play football, the Icelandics love it. They go way out on their what do they call those, snowmobiles and stuff. It's just a country that whenever there's a problem, they just fix it. And it's a great culture to especially sports-wise. And there's a good friend of mine, Thorlakar Arnason. He's now the director of football in Hong Kong. He did a presentation a few years ago, and he sent it over to me to help me out with the pro license. And it was about the Icelandic mentality. Do you remember that, you know, we were getting a lot of people talk about possession stats and stuff like that, and 62 possession against 38. Well, the Icelandics, I think it was it 38% they had when they beat England. By the way, I also rewrote Joxer Goes to Stuttgart, and I did it for the Icelandic. I did, yeah. It's not bad. I'll send that on to you as well, but you might have to keep that one to yourself. But the Icelandics, they enjoy that. Like, they enjoy the fact they'll go out and say, hey man, we're going to have 28% possession. We're going to have 30% possession. But when we have it, let's penetrate. Let's be ruthless. Let's be, you know, it's not a case of, oh, well, how can we up our possession stats? You're playing England, or you're playing France, or you're playing whoever you're playing. You're not going to have that much possession. Deal with it. And it's that mentality, not that kind of, oh, we have to up our possession stats and we have to. It's like, right, this is what we're going to get. France are going to dominate. How can we make it successful? And
so it's a case brilliant. Of don't look for the problem, look for the solution.
Well, that's the old psychological thing, you know. You spend 5% on the problem and 95% on the solution. You know, and you really have to look at it that way. It's the same as our club here. Like, there's at Vikinger, we lost. I took the job, I think, in late October 2019, John Paul. We lost 14 starters in early October 2019. Just went, because the club was brought down into the first division. They just left and went to Premier League clubs, and off they went. So I was left with 4 players, you know.
Jesus.
Just coming off a pro license, left with 4 players, and I'm like, what am I going to do here? Well, you just make the most of it. The Icelandic, so you get players that other people might not fancy. You get players that maybe are haven't been trusted by other coaches and had a lot of ability, and you go, right, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to make sure you get to your best, and you'll do all right for me. And that's one of it's the Icelandic mentality. I suppose it's the Irish mentality as well, but we might have got a bit sidetracked a little bit in Ireland. I'm not sure. But here in Iceland, it's just, right, man, I have to make this club success. It's not a case of, oh, how am I going to make this club successful? Oh, we're down. It's, I have to make this club successful. That's my job.
Positive mindset.
Oh, positive. It's all about, well, what's the alternative, John Paul? Sorry, I get really passionate about this.
No problem.
I really do. This is something that really gets into my core.
We're going to touch back on the coaching in a minute. This one, are the lads back home, your mates back home, are they a little bit extra eager to want to come and visit you now because of your current job? No, nothing to do with it whatsoever. I was coaching the women back in 2010 to 2014 as well. And I've also done men. I was coaching men from 2008 all the way through to 2012. So it's just, Iceland has a brilliant reputation. And the Icelandics always make the joke that the Vikings went to Ireland and stole all the beautiful women and brought them back. You've heard that one, haven't you? Yeah, I have. Yeah. Well, to which I always make the joke, well, my mother and my sister are still back there. So what do you know? And that gets a good pop whenever they say it. Nobody came over to visit, and I don't know why, because it's a spectacular country. Until I left in 2014, of April of 2014, and a friend of mine got engaged in 2000, around about June or July of the same year. Where did they want to go for their engagement party? Iceland. And the same guy was looking and he rings me up and he goes, what the hell am I doing? He said, and he's just looking about at all these spectacular, the women are gorgeous in the place. He goes, what am I doing? He said, I should have came over to you 5-6 years ago. I said, I've been blown on about Iceland since 2008, about what a great place it is and how welcoming the people are and everything. I said, I told you. And he was like, oh, Jesus. He says,
So yeah, that's about as clean as I can tell that story, John.
That'll do, John. That'll do.
Yeah.
Like myself, you're a big Ireland fan. You know, a massive Ireland fan. I
Massive,
can
yeah.
easily tell.
Yeah.
What do you think is wrong now? I mean, is it Stephen Kenny? Do we not have the players? It's nice football to watch. The results have been terrible. I mean, the Slovakia game in the semi-final when we lost on the penalties.
Yeah.
That was one of the best performances football-wise I've seen in years. You know, really good. The Serbia game where we lost, you know, recently before we lost to Luxembourg, you know, played really well. Keep the ball really well. But, you know, let's go back to Big Jack's era and the players he had available that were coming over. I mean, Ireland could have been very, very different if you have Patrick Bamford up front, Declan Rice protecting the back four, and Jack Grealish in the number 10 role. Yeah. Obviously, you know, the incentive now is to play for England. That's a whole other debate, whether it's because of, you know, obviously it's money related. You know, obviously you play for England, you're going to get another 10, 20 million on your transfer fee. And then the agents who are pushing all these things get the money. You know, I mean, would you stick with Stephen Kenny?
Well, look, here's the thing. As a football man, especially in international football, it's about results, you know, but Stephen's come in and he's come in with the ethos of changing the style of football. So I think the FAI are going to look and say, you know what, the results haven't been great. The results have been awful, to be fair, but it is aesthetically good to watch. Now, here's something that might interest you. Who says it's good to watch? You see, this is what we're told. We're kind of told, hey man, this is the way football should be played. Great, awesome, because we all love keeping the ball, keep it on the ground, and we all coach it. But if you're at senior level, you have to win. You have to win.
It's a results business, yeah.
It is. And also, there's no football handbook, you know, and the greatest example, we'll come back to Stephen, and the reason I'm saying it is, do you remember a few years ago, it was Dortmund against, I think, Barcelona, and Real Madrid against Bayern in the quarterfinal or the semi-finals of the Champions League. And everybody was saying, Real Madrid and Barcelona, it's going to be an all-Spanish final. It's going to be the best final ever because of the style of football, great players. And it ended up a Dortmund and Bayern final. Well, I made a lot of money. I had a bet on that when I was back home in Ireland. Because if you're sitting and say, well, tiki-taka football and this, somebody's going to find out a way to beat it. Somebody's going to go, right. And the Germans are brilliant at this. They're very pragmatic and say, right, well, this is how to beat it. And they went off and beat it. And Bayern Munich have been a fantastic team. Dortmund have been a fantastic team. Leipzig, of course. All these teams that are coming out of Germany, they're structurally very good. So you're saying to yourself, if you're at senior football, it's about winning the games. Now, that Serbia game, I watched it here. It was like watching, it was a brilliant performance, but we lost. And we lost with two very bad goals. You know, I'm wondering, you see, I'll say this, and this is where my heart goes. I think we're a little too easy in international football. We're a little too easy on bringing players through from the 21s. I remember Gareth Southgate a few years ago when he was the 21s manager of England. And he said, I think, no, I can't quote this, but the gist of it in paraphrasing was that the 21s isn't a step to the senior side. It isn't. It's a step to push you to your senior club side. And if you can perform for your senior club side, then you'll get a shot at the national team. I'm still a firm believer that we should be playing our best team always in the national, because it's a reward. You know, it's a reward. So you can't tell me, sorry, not you, of course, but James McLean, good player. Alan Brown in midfield, terrific game against Serbia. You know, we've got Adamida. I know we've got the boy Connolly up front. You know, we've got some very good players. Big Duffy at Celtic has never left Ireland down. You know, and I think you play at international football. You play your best. You play your best players. Maybe in a friendly here or there, you might try a few out, but you want to be winning games. And I think we're trying to blood these players, which is great, it's brilliant. But what about the players who, like, we're playing for Ireland? You know, they're playing for Ireland. We want to see them winning. And if I'm a right back, and I'm, you know, Seamus Coleman, I'm one of the best right backs in England at the moment. Well, do I accept the fact that I'm not going to get a cap because John Paul is potentially good? No, I want to play for my country. It's just that I still think we should be playing our best players, and you should be proving yourself at club level. I don't think the international, especially where we are at the moment, I don't think it's a place just to blood in players and say, hey, here's 20 caps and we lose 11 in a row. But that's just me, you know, I'd play my best players.
No, I mean, I agree. It's a results business. I've been going for years. mainly away games. Love the away games, but
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
the
yeah.
away games, a lot of the crowd, long ball again, long ball again,
Yeah.
long ball again, because a lot of times we were up against it. The difference, what I seen was when Martin O'Neill would play Wes Hoolahan.
Yeah.
That's when you knew the ball was on the ground. And that guy,
Mhm.
for me, I've seen Messi obviously live, but
Mhm.
one of the
Oh,
most comfortable players on the ball, low center of gravity, it just stuck to his feet, Wes Hoolahan, and that's when you knew there'd be no long ball. And then
yeah.
Wes could cut teams apart. And he did so many times. We don't have anyone like that right now. I do understand that.
So
Okay.
I'll ask you the question then. If we don't have anybody like that right now, is that the right way to be developing our international team if we're looking to win games?
I mean, obviously not. I think in football, if you're a smaller nation like Ireland, you've got to play to your strengths. And like you said, it is a results business. We could have been at the Euros. It wasn't for a penalty kick. And then we're playing Northern
Yeah.
Ireland. We had a chance of qualifying.
But look at. Do you remember when Mick took the job first in 1996, 1997? And people said, it was a transition period. Mick had a tough time the first bit. And Mick McCarthy is one of these people I have the utmost respect for. But look at the team then he built. Robbie, Damien, Richie, John O'Shea, all these guys. Brilliant. We had a brilliant amount of talent. So we were able to play a different game. And the Ireland team in 2002, leading into the World Cup in 2002, wasn't a long ball team by any means. You go back and watch those games. Irish team was fantastic.
They beat Holland, drew Portugal twice.
There you go. And that was a
but you had Roy Keane in
smashing.
midfield, you had Robbie, you had Duff.
That's my point. That's my point, John Paul.
Yeah,
that's
Premier
my
League
point. Yeah, that's my point. So we had the players, and we were able to go and play a brilliant style of football. And look, Mick McCarthy the second time, Trapattoni. I lived with a German. He's 50-50 German Italian, Greg Bauer. And I asked him, I said, ask your friends what the verdict on Trapattoni's job was that he did with Ireland. The Italians and the Germans think he's an absolute genius. They were saying, well, the Irish team wasn't great at the time, and he's an amazing manager to do what he did and take him to a championship. So these great managers have said, look, maybe we don't. And again, I'm saying maybe because we've got some brilliant players still, especially the young guys. Maybe we don't have the players to play that style of football. And if the FAI are going to stick with Stephen, and they're going to stick with developing football at grassroots and bringing through talented players that are like Wezzo, who are comfortable on the ball and who are going to, we might have to take a couple of hits as regards results. And us as fans, and we all are fans, we might have to take hits on results, and we have to back Stephen then. We have to go, right, this is where we're going. We're going to develop a different style of play. We're going to start playing a little bit more and then it might come right. No, it might not, but it might come right, but we have to back him. If they're going solely on results, of course we're not, of course there'll be talks about maybe who the next guy is. But, these top guys in football, Martin O'Neill, no joke as a manager. Martin O'Neill's a brilliant manager. Trapattoni, great manager. Mick McCarthy twice. Jack, great managers. And here's something to think about. I was asked on a podcast a couple of weeks ago what I do when I come into a club. I look at the culture of the person, and we come from a place down here in Fossvoger, and it's a smash, great football culture, great work culture. They don't accept long balls and kicking and all that, so we have to develop. You tie into the culture of the people. But then look at the Icelandic national team. Vikings, strong, hard working, not afraid of anybody, and they're willing to fight. They're willing to say, you know what, I'm just going to fight to try and get results. So you tap into that. And Lars Lagerbäck, the Swedish guy who took them to the World Cup, and the Euros, Lars knew that, and he tapped into the culture, and that would be a great way. Maybe when we're looking at our football players, look at what the Irish culture is and build around that first. And again, I say maybe,
yeah, I mean, like,
it's just something to think
about. From a fan's point of view, I was 22 for Japan and Korea. I was too young, didn't have the funds. Luckily, best times in my life was Poland 2012, France 2016.
Yeah.
I don't mind too much not going to this Euros, because there'll be no fans at it probably. God knows what's going to happen with COVID. The next World Cup is in Qatar. There's no bars there. There'll be more cracking in a hardware shop.
Nothing. Yeah, so you'd be better off staying at home.
Yeah, but then the next Euros, which are in Germany, which is built, a nation built for a tournament. I really hope that we qualify for that. So I don't mind waiting. If he wants to change the philosophy, okay.
Yeah, and don't vilify if we're going to wait, if we're going to have people like yourself who are very, very educated on football, and if we are going to wait and say, right, Germany might be our next European Championships, our next major tournament, if we're developing this style to try and get there. Great. Well, in that case, don't be hammering Stephen if he's trying to play in a certain way and we're not getting results, because you've bought into it. Not you, of course, personally, but we've bought into this change of philosophy. That's fine. But here's something on this. A tackle, and this has gone out of the game a little bit, and it's a bit disappointing. A tackle is just as motivating on a football field. A great tackle, a crunching tackle, or a 60-yard pass or something like that. As Paul Scholes' 60-yard pass is just as inspiring as 20 passes and leading up to, trying to get a goal and holding possession along the back. You want to get a crowd going, get a good tackle in. Those old-fashioned things are those old-fashioned, they've stayed relevant because they work. Getting a good early tackle, all this kind of stuff. Gone out of the game a little bit at the moment, but you wait, like you were at Lansdowne Road in the Aviva Stadium when it was packed. Good tackle, the place explodes. So we do have to retain, even though we're building a new system and a new way of playing, and we still have to retain that culture, that Irish strong Celtic culture. We have to keep involved in that.
Yeah, the last one that comes to mind actually was we played Poland in a friendly a couple of years ago, and McLean absolutely sent the Polish centre half into next week with a tackle, won the ball, but the whole crowd erupted, everyone behind the team. That is very true. Right, John, do you ever see yourself managing back home in Ireland?
Yeah, I do. I really do, and I'll put this out there now. I love Ireland. I'm in Iceland now. I love Iceland too, but I love Ireland, and I'm abroad for the last 20. Most of the last 25 years, because the jobs weren't there in Ireland for me. I had to leave to go to play in England at the time because the League of Ireland wasn't paying. All the players went to England. I always seemed to have this kind of this traveler mentality of getting away and getting working. I came over to Iceland because there was no jobs in Ireland for me. So I came back over here. If I was back in Ireland now, I could get in and whatever, and the pro license and my career as a manager and would get me a decent job, but I'd probably still have to work part-time. I'd probably still have to sing in a bar. I'd probably still have to go out and run a fitness class, which is what I did when I was previously home. If financially and if the ambition was somewhere in Ireland, I would be the first one, as soon as my contract ran out, of course, here, because I'm very loyal to people I work for. I would be the first one on a plane, a boat. I'd swim home if I could live in Ireland and do the same job in Ireland as what I'm doing here. People forget how much you've done this. You're abroad a long time, John Paul. People forget how much we love Ireland, and they think, oh, they're gone, and they'll get into these different cultures. Yeah, you do. But man, your heart is still green. Your heart is still green. And there's still, Paddy McCarthy was, this is beautiful actually. Paddy said, when you get off the plane in Ireland, and he said specifically Dublin, because he's a Dublin man, he said there's a different smell. He said, you land and you put that first foot onto the tarmac and they open up the doors and you go, and out you go from the plane. It's a different smell when you come to Ireland. And we have that. I don't know what it is. There's obviously poets and laureates and writers that have written about it, songwriters, of course. But there's a beauty in Ireland, and I love the place, and I miss it terribly. I'm just lucky, so fortunate that I've come to a country like this that has opened its arms to me as well. And I get the same feeling. Not maybe if Ireland was 100%, Iceland would be 95. I get that same warmth and feeling in Iceland. But there's something special about Ireland. I'd be back in a heartbeat if the right job came up, and if something that really interested me, I'd love to go back to Ireland.
Yeah, if you do go back, John, I think though with the experience you have now of playing in England and America, coaching in Iceland and India, I don't think you'll be singing in Jack in the Box anymore.
I love singing in Jack in the Box, and we're all right. we're not great, but we're all right.
Right, John Andrews, you've had an absolutely amazing career. Long may it continue, and thank you so much for sharing it with us.
My absolute pleasure, John Paul. I can't wait to talk to you again. It's been an absolute pleasure. Great show.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.